And the way Biden does it, he goes, inflation's at 0.
Yeah, it's
Let me
0.
repeat that again. 0. And you're like, dude, it has gone up 0 in the last month. But over the year, it's the highest in 40 years.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
You know, the balls, and it works too, though. So I would say a lot of people
nobody knows how shit works.
Yeah, no one knows any of this shit. Dude, that's what we were talking about. They literally had a headline where there was like, inflation got so bad, so to help stop it, they're going to hand out transfer. They're going to hand everyone payments.
Yeah, and he goes, where does that come from?
But it's hard to, inflation's an interesting thing when it, particularly when it spills over to like the CPI and like prices are actually rising. It's one of those things that's much harder to hide from people. Like when
your average person goes and they think they buy every day for the last year.
Is all of a sudden up, you know? Like,
and there is a weird like kind of a mental component to inflation too, because a lot of businesses are going to be like, well, I'm expecting prices to go up, so I'm just going to raise my prices now. Then there isn't even actual inflation for their like whatever their costs and products or whatever, but then they're just like, we're just going to raise it expecting it, and then everything's just more expensive now.
Yep.
There's no dollar sliced pizza anymore.
Yeah.
Like that, like literally Joe Biden killed dollar sliced pizza.
The price of groceries.
Oh, yeah, he crossed the line.
If you go to your grocery store, the price of everything is way up, or so my wife tells me. Yeah. I don't know. I don't do it. I'm not going to do it myself.
Or, she goes.
I assume she's telling the truth.
You go, hey, did you spend $1,000 shopping? You go, yeah, Biden's fucking nuts.
Goddamn,
you go,
Biden's America.
5 bananas is $90. Can you believe that?
She goes, Dave, did you spend $6,000 at the strip club? I go, Biden, the Federal Reserve, baby. I love you.
You haven't listened to
this would have been $45 in '96. Are you kidding?
You libtard.
But she does fucking like, my wife does all the fucking shopping, but she'll be like, hey, you know, like she'll be like just telling me like, hey, you know, these organic strawberries were $4 and they're $9.50 down. There's like all these things like where you're like, and I'm lucky enough that, you know, I'm not really in a position where I'm like, oh my God.
Sure.
But you look at that and you go, I try to imagine.
Yeah.
Sure.
This is how every podcast goes at some point.
It's okay.
He's the piss man. But wow. And it's not even supply chain. Remember?
I like to think that's like the opposite of like you know, Carson. If he liked you, he'd give you like okay. Like if Ryan doesn't like you, he just goes, I gotta piss.
I gotta
I'll never see him again.
He's just like downstairs, just like on his phone, like
he's doing a set right now. Like it's just out. Yeah, remember just jumping on a fucking.
Remember, it was like they were like, it's all supply chain. They go like, supply chain's all fucked up, COVID, all this stuff. That's why everything's so expensive. And you go, okay, well that's kind of over.
Right.
Like it's like we're not saying that anymore.
And I think there probably is something to the fucking truth of the supply chain, but you're like, but even that, you'd go like, okay, well, like, I don't know, fucking, I'm 39. I'm gonna be 40 next year. So I've been alive for a little while. Like, why has the supply chain never been an issue before? Yeah. Like, we've always needed shit. There's always been fucking ports and trucks and fucking factories and all this shit. So why did it fuck up? It's like, oh yeah, because you fucking locked down the entire world.
Yeah, they locked down the whole world. But also China, like they were locking down their country.
Yes, yeah, no, I'm saying lots of countries did it. But you locked down all of the major industrial countries and printed trillions of dollars. And all of them did this too. Like all the European central banks fucking followed with us. So, okay, you stopped producing and started printing money. And that led to price inflation. Yes, obviously. It's like that fucking simple. And then like to try to even make it like there's anything else happening, and they go, well, you know, the real problem is that Putin invaded Ukraine.
Yeah, I go,
yeah, that's really what fucking.
I mean, at least we don't live in fucking Europe. Jesus Christ. I never realized like the crazy difference between natural gas prices in Europe and like the US. It's like triple the price or something there.
Yeah, well, and that's changed a lot like in the last few years, but they're really like, you remember it's weird how it went in the same way that like if you had said like 5 years ago they're going to do lockdowns, you'd have been like, that sounds ridiculous. But then it happened and you're like, well, I guess that's a thing that can happen. And in the same way, like I remember when AOC first proposed the Green New Deal, and like a lot of people were like, she's a dumb bitch. Yeah. She doesn't understand how an economy works. And now they're like implementing it everywhere, and you're like, oh, Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Oh, I
and
guess
if you
this isn't-
at the time, it's the whole thing where people are like, "Don't worry." Like, you know, if you said, "I don't know about this," everyone's like, "Yeah, don't worry." Like, you're crazy, man.
cool.
It's like it's your wife or your girl. She says something, you're like, "No, it's gaslighting." You're like, "You're crazy. It's not gonna happen." And then it's like happening. You go, "Oh."
We're just gonna write it down and sign it. But like, don't flip out about what happened.
We do this
But then
all the
It's
time.
literally on the level of them being like, you know, it's very weird because there's a lot of things we take a lot of shit for granted. Like, that's kind of like where we're at in the level of society. We just take a lot of shit for granted, and it's impossible not to.
How do you?
know?
Of course, yeah.
Like, it's just
It's
like
all relative.
Like
I actually
the
hate when people-
idea that like fucking when you go to the ATM, the cash is going to come out and someone else will accept that cash.
yeah.
It's just something you turn the light switch on and the lights go on because that's how it works.
Directions
But you
are
don't, like-
probably the only one that I feel like I'm constantly don't like when I'm like lost and I found someone that actually sorts out. I actually still have it in my head like that I'm old enough to be like, man, like imagine I didn't have this. Like I do think that I think that's the only one that I think about it a lot.
Right.
And sometimes Uber Eats maybe.
And but even that, so that's the shit. I'm with you on that, but that's the shit that like we're of the age where this wasn't always
We had to
here.
flip.
But then there's shit that like when I'm talking about, you flip a light switch and that makes the lights go on.
Of course.
That is just how the world works.
Of course,
This
yeah.
little white switch gets flipped up and these lights go
Sure.
on. But we don't think about how much work there is
No.
to go into that. And what they're attacking
And I don't
right now.
plan to either,
and,
yeah.
yeah. And what the
So shut
whole
the fuck
basis
up and do the genetic.
but the whole basis of advanced society is that we have fucking power.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole thing. If we don't have that, none of this fucking works anymore.
Right.
And they're actually attacking that. They're going, you shouldn't burn fossil fuels. And you're like, okay, but that's how
Then what?
the lights go on. And
Yeah.
they're like, well, we should do it in a different way, like wind or solar. And you're like, okay, but there's not enough of that
And it's
to
not-
power any advanced country.
I mean, you know what's fucked
Like-
up when Elon Musk is like the guy selling electric cars is like, no, we do need to be burning fossil
Yes.
fuels. He's like, we're not like there yet.
Because it's not even, if you actually like look into this shit at all, it's not even like there's any debate. It's like the question is, do we all want to live like people in Nigeria, or do we want to keep burning fossil fuels?
Yeah. Sure.
That's the only debate. That's like on the,
I feel like it's the case.
there's no, now if you say, hey, should we keep burning fossil fuels and like eventually try to find something else that we can transition off of that could still support advanced societies, fine.
Which it seems
But-
like we are on that path.
Yeah,
It's not like it's going to be next year, but it'll be
it's
at some point.
maybe in 30 years or
Sure.
something. I don't know.
Which is like, that's
but
not
if you're
unreasonable.
talking about getting off fossil fuels tomorrow, and your answer isn't we're building nuclear plants everywhere, then there's simply just no way to
There you
have
go. You know,
first
who
world
else,
countries.
you know what else would work? Like just kill everyone.
No,
Yeah,
no.
that-
And
that
they're
would-
like, oh, is that yours? Can I say that?
They're like, well, that would be better for the Earth. So
I've been gluing my hand to paintings.
Oh yeah.
Just to figure this, expedite the whole process.
That's
you know?
I do think that like if they had any sense of humor at that museum when the people glued their hands to the paintings, they would have just like section it off and say they're the part of the exhibit now. And like two guys come in suits and like take the painting away, and then you go, that's the exhibit. Two girls with their hands glued to the wall, and they're like pissing themselves.
they threw soup on the painting. I
Yeah, on
think,
the
and
painting.
they
Well,
glued
that's like their new
themselves.
thing is they go to like sporting events and stuff, or they'll go to museums and then they
Girls at sporting events.
Don't you remember at the WNBA
I'll
game?
protest that. I'm there doing my own protest.
They go and they'll like zip tie their hand to like a railing on the court or something, or like they do all that stuff, and they'll glue.
I saw that
Remember at the
one. Yeah,
WNBA game,
basketball.
they glued their hand to the court,
Right,
and like
right.
all this shit or whatever. And
I feel
throwing
like the
soup on
punishment
paintings.
for gluing yourself to anything should be that the people come in should glue more of you to it.
That's what I
Like
mean.
they should just put more glue. They're like, oh
Lean
no,
into
how are we
it.
going to get you off? And then just put glue on your face
Accident,
and push your
make it an
face against it. And
accident,
be like,
yeah.
oh, all right, yeah. Guess what? You live here now. Okay. All right, so
yeah,
that's
just
it.
set the lights out. Like,
Okay.
guys,
You wanted this.
and then just credits come up.
they get just like the number one like elementary school bully in America, like a mercenary to come and just like fuck with you now.
Hey, environment girls, you love the environment so much. Here's some dirt. Yeah, take some more environment. It's your favorite thing. Just poison ivy.
Oh yeah, it's all natural. Don't worry.
Literally,
Yeah.
too, it's like it's funny because they like their whole thing is like, yeah, we have this like message, and you're like, and then you hear it and you go like, I guess or whatever, but like it's not working. Like nobody is being like, oh yeah, gluing your hand to this thing. We really do need to get off fossil fuels. Like people are just like,
Well, it's like all the people like that are not all, but there's tons of people, and like with tons of money in Silicon Valley that also like agree that they're just like there's people putting billions of dollars into companies to try to make like energy a different way and cleaner and blah blah. But it's like. Yeah, they're like, well, this doesn't happen tomorrow. And they're like, hey, why don't you just invent a new way to run the world? And everyone's kind of like, yeah, we are kind of trying. And they're like, tomorrow or more paintings go. Right. And he's like, you're not even living in like, it'd be like a guy who works at a fucking on a construction site and his wife comes home and he's like, if you don't make $1 million a year by tomorrow, I'm walking out. And
it's almost like, it's like we take for granted that we have to have the life we have now. So let's do that. But without any bad stuff.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay.
Well, there's no trade-offs.
Like, no, there's a lot. Right. There's a lot that goes into this, and that's where I think there's a thing where like if we didn't like if you lived like if we lived 150 years ago, a lot of the shit is much more obvious. Like if you went like, well, to slow the spread of this virus, I need you to stop working for 3 months. You'd be like, we'll starve.
Yeah.
Like we'll starve to death if we do that. But today they go, I want you to stop working for 3 months and I don't want there to be any costs. And that feels a little bit more possible because we're so removed from like the prospect of like starving to death.
Yeah.
But you're like, okay, maybe we won't starve to death, but it's still gonna cost something. There's no way to do that and not be like, okay, but shit, you're gonna be way poorer in 3 years than you are right now. Oh, that's just it.
Yeah, you got what was the stimulus in America? $1,400.
Yeah,
one time,
something like that.
Something like that. But you're like, this is gonna cost like your grocery bills are $1,400 a month higher right now. So how'd that work out?